Greetings! In this video, we're going to be discussing the Vacant Land Listing Agreement. Now, this contract is discussing contracts within the state of Florida. So everything that we're going to be discussing in this video is concerning the Vacant Land Listing Agreement and contracts and brokerage relationships in the state of Florida only, not concerning other states. So, without further delay, let's get straight into the video, talk about this contract line by line, because you'll use this listing agreement when you're going to be representing a seller and selling their vacant lot, whether it's zoned for commercial, residential, really anything. If it's a vacant lot and the sellers are looking to list it for sale, you could use this contract to take upon the listing and sell it for them. Assist them with the facilitation of that process. So, before we begin with this contract, I want to note that this particular contract, for some reason, it's the only listing agreement that does not have a paragraph discussing the brokerage relationship. Now, in the state of Florida, there's several different brokerage relationships that you could have. The one that's most popular, well, I wouldn't say most popular, but there's the transaction broker relationship, single agency, and you want to disclose that to your clients. So it's not in this contract. I hope they change it soon, but at the time of making this video, if you look at the date when this video was made, this is the contract, and it doesn't discuss that in any of the paragraphs. So usually within your realtor association, they have a separate form, and this is the form that we use here at Nizz Realty. It's just a relationship notice form. Now, if you're an agent with Nizz Realty or one of our brokerages, it's highly recommended, it's not required, but it's highly recommended that you operate as a transaction broker. It's just so much easier. You could represent both parties with this. You could represent the seller and the buyers, complete the whole transaction yourself. There's way less liability involved. It's highly recommended you always operate as a transaction broker, unless under very specific and unique circumstances that you need to operate as a single agent, or if your client's really requesting a single agency relationship. It's not really worth it, in my opinion. It makes it very difficult to work with to represent both parties. You really can't work with both parties. You have to transition to a transaction broker. Just makes things difficult, and there's way more liability involved. So I highly recommend you always operate as a transaction broker, but it's not required. There are other relationships, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to be doing a transaction broker relationship. So we have this form that we use here at Nizz Realty. It's a simple one-page form. All you have to do is write your brokerage name here, have your client sign it and date it. That's it. You now have a transaction broker relationship. So normally the listing agreement has this discussed in the contract. For some reason, the Vacant Land Listing Agreement doesn't have that paragraph in it. This is the only contract, listing agreement contract that doesn't have it. I don't know why. So we just add this extra form, have your client sign it, date it, and file this just to keep on record so that you know that this has been disclosed. You're a transaction broker. You're operating as a transaction broker. So with that being said, let's get straight into the contract. We're now operating as a transaction broker. Let's fill out this listing. So the first part here, seller's name, let's just say seller's name is Billy Bob, something simple. You could put, maybe it's owned by a LLC, a company name. You just put whoever the seller is, their name up there. The next part, broker. You're supposed to put your company name here, so put Nizz Realty Inc. there, and you could leave it like this. However, my recommendation and professional advice is I like to put my names on the contract as well. So let's say the listing agent for this property is Sally Nizz. So I would write Sally Nizz as listing agent, something like that, or a listing representative, listing sales associate, listing realtor. Listing agent is good, simple enough, but I like to put something here like this, just to have my name on the contract and let it be disclosed and clarified that that Sally Nizz is the listing agent for this listing. Sure, Sally Nizz works for a brokerage and a broker. The company is Nizz Realty Inc, but this is Sally's listing. So I like to put the name there. This is just my professional opinion. You proceed how you want. You just want to leave the company name there. That's fine. You really just need the brokerage name there. But I like to put, listing agent's name there as well. Moving along. The term of the contract. Let's say you shouldn't be doing anything over 1 year. You could do it shorter than a year, but let's say for the purposes of this contract, we're doing 1 year. So the way you're supposed to do it, and a lot of realtors make the mistake that you're supposed to end it 1 day before. So if you take this listing on March 2nd, 2022, it's supposed to end on March 1st at right before midnight on 2023 for a 1 year. It's not supposed to be on the 2nd like that. A lot of realtors make that mistake where they just write the same date next year. That's not the right way to do it. The proper way is to have it end the day before. So if you took the listing on March 2nd, it ends on March 1st the next year. If you took the listing on the 9th, it's going to end on the 8th. If you took the listing on the 1st of March, it ends on the 28th of February. You just go 1 day backwards. That's the proper way to do this. A lot of realtors make this mistake, but I'm telling you the proper way to do it, the right way to do it. It's supposed to end on the day before at 11:59 p.m. like the contract says. So, moving along. You see this is the right way to do it. Take note of that so you're doing things the proper and professional way. Next part is the street address. So, I want to briefly discuss that. With vacant land, sometimes they don't have a street address. It could be just a recent parcel that was given an ID. Most of the time, the property should have at least a parcel ID or a legal description. 99% of the time. I've only seen very rare situations where, someone owns a piece of land and it's not been recorded in the county public records and been assigned at least a legal description or a parcel ID, or had any surveys done or anything. I suppose there can be a situation where that is, where it hasn't been assigned yet. That makes it a little bit more difficult, but there should still be some type of way to acquire the documentation that the seller owns this piece of land, and how is that land, how's that land identified? They should have some type of documentation to identify the piece of land. Without that, you want to get that first before taking the listing, but 99% of the time that's not the situation. Most of the time there's at least a legal description or a parcel ID in the county records. So you could write that if there's no street address. But for this particular video example, we're going to write an address. So let's do 123 Happy Street. Just write something there. Then a legal description. The legal description is usually just a combination of numbers and letters that looks, it could be different and so forth. You just take the legal description and put it into this line. However, sometimes the legal description is tremendous and it's not going to fit in these two lines. So what you can do, you can check mark this box, you can remove this here, and you can write something like see Exhibit A. And then you could have a separate document labeled Exhibit A and fit the whole legal description, because sometimes the legal description is like the whole size of this page right here, like just fills the whole thing. It's just this huge thing. And if it's too big to fit in here, you could just write up a separate Exhibit A concerning this address, this legal description. You could fit it all on there, if you can't fit it all in these two lines here. So that's one way to handle that professionally. See attachment, click this, write see Exhibit A, attach Exhibit A with this listing agreement. So moving on to the next thing, personal property. This paragraph discusses a lot of things in here. Solar panels, irrigation system, gates. If there's anything that's not listed here, you could put it into this line right here, fill it in. I don't know, it could be maybe there's like a chicken coop that's being included with the property. Vertical wind turbines. That's even discussed here. Windmills. Anything extra that's not listed here, you could put here in this particular paragraph. If it all doesn't fit, once again, you could click the attachment. See Exhibit B. Write up a whole separate Exhibit B and list all the things there. Maybe there's, I don't know, an air-conditioned doghouse, you know, livestock or something, whatever the case may be, you fill it in here. I'm not going to discuss too much here, but you know, you should be able to fill this out, whatever else is being included here, and write up a separate exhibit if it's not here. Occupancy. Most of the time it's a vacant lot, so there shouldn't be a tenant there. I suppose under, you know, a unique circumstance, maybe the vacant lot has a tenant in a manufactured home or an RV, possibly, that's, you know, renting or leasing the land from the seller and has maybe their RV parked on there or something. That's not too common, but I suppose that could happen. In that case, you could write, you know, property is, I guess, leased, and the lease expires on whatever date. For the purposes of this contract, let's just say that there's no tenant, there's no lease happening, but if there is, you'd check mark it accordingly and fill it out. So, the next paragraph we discuss is price. It should be fairly simple. You just put the price. Let's just say we're going to be selling this property for $100,000, whatever the price is. Financing terms. I highly recommend that you just click all of them. It's, you know, in my professional advice, it's not wise to discriminate or reject any potential buyers upon their source of income or financing opportunities. It can possibly create some type of liability. Not necessarily always, but it's just my professional recommendation that if conventional or FHA or VA is allowed for the particular lot that you're selling, I just don't advise you to tell somebody, no, I don't want any type of conventional loans. I'm not interested at all. You don't want to discriminate like that. It's best to just accept and entertain all offers in my professional advice, and you know, you don't have to accept the offer. Just because someone wrote up an offer for you, doesn't mean the seller has to accept that. You could be waiting for a different type of offer, and just, you know, the main thing here, what I'm trying to explain is, it's just better for liability purposes just to not discriminate upon source of income and so forth. It's easier to just say all offers will be entertained and accepted, let the offer be submitted, and if the seller doesn't want to take that offer, you just hold it off to the side and, you know, continue to entertain other offers and so forth. You can't be forced to take a conventional or VA offer. You know, you can't, it's the same way that you know, you can't force it upon a seller to accept anything, but it's just a liability purpose for discriminating upon income. In my professional opinion, this is just, you know, me giving advice on, as far as that's concerned. So really just entertain everything. It's not worth it to maybe possibly run into a situation where someone's upset because you told them we're not accepting any conventional loans, we're not taking it, we don't want to see it. Better just accept it and, you know, hold it as a backup offer and entertain other cash offers if that's what you're looking for. So I like to check mark all these boxes, leave it at that. These next paragraphs here, I'm not going to discuss really because it could take a lot of time in this video, but if you have a situation where you're doing seller financing or an assumption of an existing mortgage, if you don't understand this paragraph, consult your broker, or if you're a part of our brokerage, you know, give us a call. We could explain, you know, figure out the situation that you're in and what you're looking to do. But for right now, I'm going to skip over these particular parts of the paragraph. Consult your broker if you have trouble filling this out and you need to answer these questions. But if you do have a situation where you're accepting seller financing or an assumption, you know, fill it out accordingly. For now, we're moving along. The next part here, the things to fill out is broker authority. I highly recommend that you don't click any of these boxes, because if you can't display the street address on the internet or display the property on the internet at all, yeah, it's going to be very difficult to sell this listing. So, you know, use your sole discretion if that's what you want to do, and try to just sell the property without the use of the internet or putting the street address online. That's up to you. My advice is I don't think that's a good idea. In 2022, at the time I'm making this video, you want the power of the internet and all those major websites to advertise the listing. So if the seller insists on checking these boxes and signing here, you may want to reconsider taking this listing. It maybe too. That sounds very difficult, but it's your listing. If you feel that's what you want to do, then go right ahead. But for the purpose of this video and my advice, we're skipping over that. So you don't need to fill out anything here. Moving along. You could check this if there's a gate code. If it's a vacant lot, there's usually not a lockbox system, but maybe there's a gate code and so forth. If there is, check mark this box. If you want to withhold verbal offers or withhold all offers once a seller accepts contract, you can check mark these boxes as well. This is completely up to you and the relationship with your seller and what your seller wants to do. Me personally, I usually leave it like this. Sometimes I click this box. It's up to you though. I'm going to leave this contract like this. You fill this out accordingly to how you want to handle your listing. It's fairly simple here. Moving along. VOWs. You can check these boxes if your seller doesn't want to do this. I personally, when I sell my own listings or represent sellers, I don't think it's a big deal for an estimate market value or for the comments. Usually there's nothing written or anything anyways, but it can happen if you leave this unchecked. Then you mark it in the MLS for this not to be done. This is at your sole discretion once again. This particular paragraph is not a big deal. This is really, you could do either way. You could check mark these boxes if the seller really doesn't want these things. Me personally, I just let it be. It doesn't bother me, even with my own listings. I'm not too concerned about it, but that's my personal opinion. Maybe you feel otherwise. If so, check mark these boxes. For the purpose of this video, I'm leaving it as is and moving along. Seller's obligations and representations. You could read through this whole paragraph, but usually what I write here, I don't like to leave this blank. If there's something that you know of or the seller knows of that needs to be disclosed, maybe there's an endangered species on the property. Maybe there's some endangered, some Florida panthers that have created that are on the property or something. Maybe there's gopher tortoises, which are an endangered species, which is a whole big process to have them professionally removed safely. You can't just get rid of them because they're an endangered species. Something like that, something that needs to be disclosed. You could write it here for the purposes of this video, and most of the time, in my personal experience, don't really know anything, but if there is something that's known, you disclose it here for the purposes of this video. I don't like to leave this blank. A lot of agents, they just skip over it. I don't like to leave it blank. If there's nothing known, I like to write none known. So that there's nothing that's been known of. You ask the seller doesn't know anything, you don't know anything, you don't see anything, none known. If there's something known, like violations or anything like that, write it here. Moving along. Compensation. This is a paragraph that's very important. It's about your real estate commission, and a lot of times it's filled out incorrectly, so we're going to do it the correct way today. So, with that being said, let's say for the purposes of this contract, it's a 6% commission. That's what you're listing the property for, and you're going to be splitting that 6% with another realtor. So if another realtor gets involved with a buyer, you give them 3%, you keep 3%, that 6% is split. In that case, you're doing a 6% contract. Because if a buyer contacts you and they don't have a realtor representing them, then you can work with the buyer and the seller, keep the full 6%. So that's where having a transaction broker relationship is great, because now you could represent both parties and keep the full 6%. If you're charging anything extra, maybe a transaction fee, you could put it here, an extra $400 or whatever the transaction fee is if you're doing that. If there's no extra transaction fee that you're charging, you don't have to put it there. You could read through these other paragraphs and fill it out. I usually never fill out these other paragraphs, but you can, depending on the type of listing and commission structure you're doing. Most of the time I just do it of the total purchase price. So for the purpose of this video, we're doing the 6% total purchase price, or whatever it is, 5%, 6%, whatever you put there. That's up to you. This is just for an explanation for this video. I'm not going to talk about part B or C because I'm not filling that in. If you have questions about that, talk to your broker. We're doing this this particular way for this contract. Termination date, you could put whatever here for the most part. 60 days, 90 days, 180 days. Let's just say 180 days. Or you could say 90 days. Let's just say 90 days for this contract to move it along there. Retained deposit. You can fill this out with any number here that you want. A lot of realtors leave this blank and just at the standard 50%. I don't like to leave anything blank personally, so 50%. I think 50% is good. That's usually what I put. So I'll put 50% there if there's a retained deposit and so forth, escrow dispute, something like that. You could give it all to your client too, and you could not receive anything. This is really at your sole discretion, once again, what number you're going to put there. If you want my personal and professional opinion, I think half is good, because usually your brokerage has to get involved with obtaining the deposit in some way. So 50%, but you put whatever you want here, 80%, 20%, 5%, 0%, it's up to you. Let's move along. Cooperation with and compensation to other brokers. This is the next paragraph. So, you should be filling out all the relationships in here. So, we're doing a contract for 6%. Let's say you're splitting that with another realtor. You want to check mark this box, and this box. If you're splitting that. Now you could pay them a flat fee and put it here, but for the purposes of this contract and this video, 3%. You're splitting it in half. And you want to do 3% to a single agent for the buyer. Oop, can't highlight it. Anyways, yeah, where my mouse cursor is, single agent. 3% to a transaction broker relationship. 3% to a no brokerage relationship. I see a lot of realtors, they sometimes don't do the 3% for no brokerage relationship. This is at your discretion once again. You could not do the 3% and just charge, just say you're going to give a $500 flat fee for a no brokerage relationship. That's up to you. You could split this up however you want to the different relationships. I personally don't care about the relationship. This is just my personal opinion. Whatever the relationship is that the other realtor has with their client, I'm not concerned about. The only thing I'm concerned about is, are they bringing a client that's going to close the deal and make this a closed sale so that we could get paid? That sounds fantastic. What their relationship is, I'm not concerned about. I'll split the commission with them, whatever their relationship is. But if you want to divide this up separately, like you only want to offer 3% here, 2% here, 1% here, it's up to you. My professional opinion and advice, just mark these 3 boxes and just split it in half. If it's 6%, give them 3%. If it's 5%, offer 2.5% here. But this is at your sole discretion. If you're going to change this up with the different amounts you're offering, completely up to you. So for the purposes of this contract, we're just going to keep it simple. It's a 6% contract, split it in half, 3% to all of the involved relationships, and that's it. That's how I recommend you fill this out, but fill it out to your best knowledge and how you want to proceed. Conditional termination. This is you fill this number in here with whatever you want. This is if your seller requests that maybe you list the property today, and 2 months from now something happens, whatever it is, the seller doesn't want to sell no more for whatever reason. You invested your time and sometimes money in advertising this listing, creating the MLS listing, putting on the internet, taking phone calls, working with the client to get the listing. There was some of your time involved. So if you're going to cancel the contract, you could cancel the contract, but you put a number here for them to pay you a fee. I always recommend if somebody really wants to cancel the contract, you just let them out of the contract. There's no reason to hold them hostage, and you can't force them to sell their property. If they don't want to sell no more, they don't want to work with you no more. Like keeping them under contract, it just makes the situation worse. But that's my professional opinion. If somebody doesn't want to work with me, I'm not going to force them to work with me any further. Just going to let it go. I'm going to move on. There's other business out there. But a lot of times I'll put something here so I could tell the seller, listen, whatever the situation is, if you don't want to sell the property no more, you don't want to work with me no more, whatever it is, I understand. But if you want to cancel the contract, I invested some of my time in creating this listing and doing what I've done so far. So if you want to terminate it, you could pay this fee here. That's what this paragraph is discussing. So let's say the seller, from the beginning, what was the seller's name? Billy Bob. Let's say Billy Bob tells Sally Nizz, listen, Sally, I don't want to sell no more. I want to work with somebody else. I don't want to work with you no more. This is where you could put here, let's say Sally put $1,000. Sally could tell Billy Bob, like, listen, that's fine. We could cancel this agreement, but I'm going to ask for the $1,000 to conditionally terminate this agreement for the time that I invested into this particular listing. So that's what this is for. You don't have to put anything here. You could just put, $0 or nothing, and just, let the individual walk free, and you don't get paid anything. I always recommend putting something here, because you did invest some of your time. Time is money into creating the listing, some of your labor creating the listing. So you could put something here. That's what I recommend, that you put at least something here, $500 or something at least. But for the purpose of this video, we're just going to put 500. You put whatever you want there. I'm not going to talk anymore about this paragraph. Whatever your time is worth to you, you put it there. Dispute resolution. You can read through this paragraph. The only thing I'm going to discuss here is I recommend that you have the seller's initial here and you and the broker initial here. I'd recommend initialing this paragraph just in case. But you can read through the paragraph and make that decision accordingly to you. If you're with our brokerage, I definitely highly recommend that you initial this paragraph. So there's that. And that's the end of the contract, really. If there's additional terms, I'm not going to fill in anything here, but if there's some type of additional terms, you could fill it out in there. Talk to your broker about what you're looking to do and how you want to draft that accordingly. But that's pretty much it for this contract. You just initial up here for this paragraph, I recommend. Other than that, seller sign it, date it. Of course, you got to initial every page, as you can see down here. Same with the other pages. And then you always want to mark one of these boxes down here and put a date. A lot of realtors don't like to fill out this this section here, but you should have this filled out. It's the proper way to do it, so that you know when the copy was returned to the seller. If you're e-signing, I suppose those e-signing programs have a certificate that shows when it was signed and received, but it takes a second to fill out this. Just fill it out, but it's my professional opinion. And that's it. Sign it, date it, you sign it, date it, and there you go. You have a vacant land listing agreement. As we discussed in the beginning of the video, there's no brokerage relationship discussed in that particular agreement. For some reason, hopefully they change it, so make sure you have your brokerage notice agreement signed as well. Other than that, that's the vacant land listing agreement. I do hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. If you have any other tutorial of contracts that you want to see, feel free to write a comment, let me know. Any questions, write a comment, let me know, like the video, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, I'm making these videos to help out associates with our brokerage and anyone else who sees these videos who's looking to fill out this contract and needs things explained thoroughly, line by line. And I hope that that's been accomplished here. I'll see you in the next video. It was a pleasure as always.